Welcome back, Nine More Success In and Out listeners. We are back, and you guys come here for stuff where what happens when your worst fear becomes your reality? How do you adapt, survive, overcome, set yourself free? Well, I have a guy here that it's an incredible story. I've been reading about him all afternoon on all the different things that he went through. This guy went to the Supreme Court, and the incredible thing is he went to trial. There were mistakes made in the trial, and he just kept fighting. He went pro se, which for those out there that know what pro se is, that means you did it on your own without an attorney. It was a big case. It had 43, 44 defendants in this deal. It was marijuana. They were taken from California to Kansas. In the end, Loso Dahda was sentenced to 189 months for transporting and running an operation. They coupled him into, being an organizer, a person who was leading this deal. And it's fascinating because he had a twin brother that was involved in this. It has a lot of coverage. You get on the internet and you start looking at this, and there's a lot about this case. And I want to thank Brian Christopher who set and connected us up here to this. And so before we get on and unpack all this, I can't wait to get into all this. I want to recognize our sponsor of the show, Auto Plaza Direct. Who likes spending a couple of weekends walking the car lots, looking for a car? Then you spend 4 or 5 hours in the dealership to buy a car. It's kind of like a trip to the dentist. Well, there's a better way to take away all the pain and hassle of getting a car. Auto Plaza Direct. They are your personal car concierge. Just tell them the car you want, what you can pay, and they'll go find that car for you. They'll negotiate your best price and deliver that car to you. They also offer you warranties and financing, full service. Go to autoplazadirect.com to get started with your personal car concierge. The new hassle-free way, the car buying experience you deserve. Auto Plaza Direct. Tell them Brent from Nightmare Success sent you. So we've got Loso Grandioso, otherwise known as Loso Dahda. Man,
yeah, Los Dahda.
What a great, unbelievable story you have. And I got reading this thing. It reads just like one chapter after another chapter after another chapter. And man, you're one of the few, and we were just talking about this, Los, that you were, when people get indicted, 97% plea, you did not.
Yep.
And you went to trial, and you went through it all. Then after that, you became, an attorney, basically, understanding the law, learning the law, educating yourself on the law, filing motions, making things work for you to the point where you were able to push yourself all the way up to the Supreme Court, which I think is absolutely fascinating. Being somebody who studied political science as a degree in college, fascinating. And just the fact that you did all that to me is just incredible. But I want to take the people back a little bit, Los, with what you had when you were a kid growing up. Take me back to those days.
Well, I grew up, I come from a big family. I got 7 sisters, 3 brothers. My parents, I'm originally from Wichita, Kansas. My dad's worked for Boeing my whole life. Well, now it's called Spirit, but he's a union man.
Wichita, Kansas is a cool town too. I mean, we went there. I went there because my kids were in the Missouri Valley, played tennis, and they had tennis tournaments there. And I was always, so impressed with that it was like a little Dallas in the middle of nowhere, Dallas, Texas. It had it all.
Yeah. Oh yeah. It's more of it's not like Kansas City. I call Kansas City home, but I'm from Wichita. But yeah. Wichita is definitely more south than, like Kansas City style. It's more, you're going to see black guys wearing cowboy hats, rocking Jerry curls. Yeah. It's closer to Dallas and, OKC than Chicago or St. Louis.
So you said you had 7 siblings. Well, so there were 7 of
Yeah.
you all in all.
No,
There
there's
were
10 of us. Well, there's 10
of
of us
you in
in
all.
all.
Okay, there were 10,
Yeah.
7
I got
sisters,
7
3
sisters,
brothers.
3 brothers. Yep.
Wow, that's a
So,
huge family.
yeah. My dad's working. He's never not had a job that I know of. So I'm one of, I'm lucky to have a father. There's a lot of guys, especially, you're locked up with these guys. They don't have a
Yeah.
father. So I've known my father my whole life. He's a great man, strong union man. That's why I joined the union. And so I'm fortunate, and I didn't do good in school. Me and my brother got in trouble. My parents got divorced when I was like 9, and we went and stayed with my mom. My mom's white, my dad's black.
Did she live in Wichita?
Well, we all lived in Wichita, but then we moved to Iowa for 2 years, and we were around nothing but white people. That was no good, no fun. I don't think they had a hip hop station or a blues station or anything where we lived. So it was miserable. I mean, it's good. There's good people out there. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
And I like country music, but you like to mix it up every now and then. So then we moved to Lawrence, Kansas when I was 11. And so Lawrence, Kansas is a college town.
Kansas to a Mizzou guy is like enemy territory.
Yeah. It's a college town. It's all about KU basketball,
Mm-hmm.
And the KU basketball players can do anything they want to do in that town.
Yeah.
Especially when I was coming up. But I got a paper route when I was 13, and I'd be selling papers, and I've always ran with the older guys and stuff, and we started smoking weed and stuff, and I was selling newspapers to make money to buy, because my parents are divorced, so now we're not, it's just me in the house, and my mom's bad with money. She's horrible with money. So she's
Okay.
I tell her all the time that the best thing you ever did for me was one thing you taught me is how to be good with money, because you're so bad with it.
No judging on that.
Yeah. So she just makes bad decisions with money. She just can't,
But how crazy would that have been, Loso, with 10 kids? I mean, how did that work?
Well, so that was just my dad. So my dad's got 7 girls first, then us 3 boys.
Okay.
And so when my parents divorced, it was just us 3 boys.
Just the 3. Okay.
Yeah, with my mom. Yeah.
All right.
So it's just us 3, and
you have a twin brother.
Twin brother and a little brother. And I have a kid brother now, after all, not with my dad, never. So another, he came later on.
Yeah.
So but yeah, it was, I had to work so we could eat. My dad wasn't in the picture no more. My mom wasn't getting child support at the time, so I had to have a job so that we could all eat. So I got to, I was raised, that's what you do. She just didn't file for child support because, I don't know, she wanted to make it on her. I don't know what she was thinking.
Yeah.
But during this time, we just, I had to work. So I built fences and had a paper route. And my paper route in Lawrence was actually the college campus, like half the college campus. So it was like sorority row and fraternity row. So I would go up on campus and deliver the papers, and these chicks or guys would be like, "Hey man, we get a paper from you," and I'd sell them a paper and make a little side money. Well, this is my paper route for a long, for probably like 2-3 years. They're like, "Hey, I'm the only brown looking guy up here sometimes, So this is during the 90s. Like, "Hey, where I can get some weed?" I'm like, "Yeah, I know where you can get some weed," and I started selling weed.
And how old are you there?
13.
13.
Yeah, 13. So
the paper route
that was
turns into a weed route?
Well, no, not really. It was just real small. That's like the first time. I just did a few deals, It wasn't until I really got in school, I wouldn't say till I was like 15, that I really started selling weed. And I didn't really start really making money till I was 16. I made my first 100,000, and then I got in some trouble.
16 years old, Loso?
Yeah, I was probably, I probably didn't make 100,000 that year. I know when I was 18, I made I made over 100,000. I made a lot of money. Well, I thought it was a lot of money.
That's a lot of money as a teenager.
Yeah. So I mean, I was making, and now this back then is Mexican brickweed, so it wasn't kind, but it's not the good. It's just, that's what everyone was smoking in Kansas back then. So Kansas, Missouri was just Mexican brickweed. So it wasn't until like the mid 90s I started getting, and I got older, homies, I started traveling when there was droughts back then. You couldn't get weed.
Yeah.
Most people don't realize, this younger generation, they don't know, like back then there was times where there was no weed anywhere. You couldn't get it. So I learned a long time ago, you get in the vehicle, you get in the truck, and you go find it wherever it's at. And if you bring it back, you're the only person that's got it, you can make a lot of money.
How do you know how to find it?
I mean, just contact somebody would know, you just had to have money. And I always save my money, so
Yeah.
I always save my money. I had older friends and they'd be like, will you go with me? Because I was always, I was a big guy, I was all, even for my age, I was always bigger, than, when I was 16, I looked like I was 20. I went to the liquor store when I was building fences. I went to the liquor store when I was like 16 and bought a case of 40s. I remember, I'm sure if the dude thought about it, he probably thought that was weird. Like, what grown man buys a case of 40s, but I thought it was cool because, that's what all the rappers, everybody's drinking 40s.
Sure, that's
so
what they sing about. Yeah.
Yeah. So I went in there and bought a case of 40s. I'm just, put it on the counter. Hey, how's it going? Yeah, it's hot out, man, So
Dehydrated.
yeah. So yeah, I've always looked a lot older or whatever, but yeah, I started taking trips out of town, buying, and this is just 100, 200 pounds, I'd go out to Western Kansas to Garden City, Dodge City, and buy, brick weed out there, all over Arkansas, Kentucky. I mean, just wherever you could find it. So, but it's small scale, like, it was, at that time, I was loving life. I could buy a car, buy my brother a car, but I never imagined. So I ended up getting in trouble. Well, during this whole time, like, because we're not originally from Lawrence, but during this whole time, in the 90s, all the gang stuff is going on.
Mm-hmm.
So I wasn't originally even with any gang. We weren't even in the gang or anything, but we ended up getting into it with these guys. And so they basically,
How does it happen, Loso? With you're doing your deal on the side, and you're making
messing.
You're doing your deal on the side, and you're
Mhm.
making that you're making your world work. How does that blend in, interchange with getting into a gang?
Well, it doesn't work out too well, but guys get jealous about money and stuff. So, you got, because in the gang, you got everybody. So I would say at first it was good. Like all the guys I grew up with, I'm still friends with. These are all good guys, like I'm still friends with all these guys, like I'm not one of these, I'm not a dropout. I'm not, like I'm not a gang banger, but I am a gang member. Because if I was to say I'm not in a gang, that would be like me telling you I don't love these guys. I love these guys. They didn't betray me. I still love them. I can ask them for anything today, but I'm not out there doing dirt, doing crazy stuff. That time is, past, but not everybody is, we don't all, not everybody stayed together, but and some people just can't hustle. They're not good with money. They're not, so you come up and you're making money and you got a group of guys that just want to gangbang, shoot stuff up, get in fights, I want to make money and chase girls, so kind of like the guys that made money, they went this way, and the guys that wanted to be on the knucklehead stuff went that way. And then, so, but yeah.
So as things progress for you, Lo, so you were making money at 18 years old. You're pulling down to six figures. Were you thinking, man, I could really make this into an empire of something because I kind of know the business? What were you thinking?
No, nothing like that. So I end up getting in trouble. I catch a gun case. They're actually looking for my brother. Well, because of the gang stuff. So we because we're identical twins. I had a really big reputation and a bad reputation with the police. I fought the police a lot because I was raised, if it's not right, it's not right. Doesn't matter who it is. So when the police come and they start pushing me around, I push back. This is before all this stuff is cool. So, when the cops are pushing my friends around. I'll stand up and I'll push them back. Then they hit me, then I hit them back. And so I was a troublemaker, crazy guy. I got this reputation of being this crazy, insane pit bull on crack because I fight the police. Now you're a revolutionary. Now you're what do they call themselves? These people that they protest. I'm a protester. I'm a this. I'm a that. You know what I mean? Like I'm like, man, I've been on that. I've been doing that. What are you talking about? I've been fighting the police. I've been fighting police my whole life. So. And I was actually going to get out for the COVID stuff. They were going to release me. They told me, you need to call your family. We're going to release you. I'm like, nah, there's no way. I went to trial. Yeah, during COVID. They're like, no, because you're just on a marijuana case. I'm like, there's no way I went to trial. I've been doing these appeals. There's no way they're going to kick me out. Mm-hmm. And then 2 days later, they're like, my case manager's like, yeah, we're kicking you out for sure. No, there's like nobody that's getting kicked out. You're one of the few people that qualify in the whole place. I'm looking over your stuff. He's like, call your family. They need to be here to pick you up. 2 days later, he's like, yeah, you don't qualify because in your PSI, you fought the police when you were 15 years old.
Yeah.
And
that stuff follows you all the way through the case manager, through your probation, everything else.
Well, when you're in the feds, they black box you. If you got any assault on law enforcement officers, they'll black box you. They put you in a black box. Whether you're at a camp or low or anything, you'll always wear a black box.
Right.
So, yeah. So I'll be on the plane. They're looking at me like I'm some OG super killer. I'm like coming through with the box on. They're like, man, who's this big? Who's
that guy can hurt you. Yeah.
Yeah. And I ain't on nothing. I'm a weed man. I'm not with the violence. So yeah.
Well, let's back up a little bit. So you're getting through your teenage years.
Yeah.
What's your next step from teenage in this world that you're in? Where do you go? What do you do?
Well, I think I will say the gang stuff plays a big part in it because I learned how to interact with, and I'm in a Mexican gang. Mm-hmm. So it's like I'm in three worlds. I got the white side, the black side, and the Mexican side.
Yeah.
But I learned a lot, how to interact with people, how to get along with different people not from my background. And, bad stuff happens or whatever. And I learned that violence, is, you ain't going to make money with violence.
Oh, that's counterproductive.
So, yeah. And I knew so I see some of my friends, they start selling coke and other drugs, and I see what comes with it, violence and trouble, and then the people you got to deal with, and I see other guys because, when you're around money, you'll see everything.
Yeah.
So I see guys that sell heroin, meth, whatever. And I'm just like, man, I don't want to do nothing like that. I don't want to hurt anybody. I like to have the moral high ground. I don't feel bad about what I'm doing.
Right.
And I still don't.
Right.
Selling weed.
Well, what you were doing is legal now.
Yeah. Well, but I mean, back then, when this is going on, it's not cool. You're the devil.
Right.
You're not cool. It's not like it is now, like all these little, you go to all these shops in Missouri, that you walk in there, hey man, what's going on? What are you interested in? Like you want a strawberry coffee, like you want something smooth, you want a sativa, like
brownie,
I'm just like
some cookie.
Oh man, yeah. So it's just that just, I mean, it's a bitter pill to swallow because it's, and the weed game really is more white. So, you got more guys that went to prison for it. But to me, the weed game has always really been more white. Like all the guys on the high end, growers and everything in Cali, Canada, those are all white guys. So don't get me wrong, there's guys that went to prison for it. They were minorities and got in trouble for it on the low level stuff. But most of the guys I did business with were usually always white.
So Loso, did you have to, because it is a business, I mean, I'm sure that from the supplier side, you had to look for people that were consistently good about being able to do what they said they would do, be able to pick up when you can do it, and be able to get to where you need to go.
Yeah. I mean, that person is finding a good person is like a treasure, someone dependable that really finding somebody who even wants to, who's smart enough and capable enough, but who has the desire to be bigger, because some people, when they see like during this time or even anytime when they see 100 pounds, they freak out. They're running to the door trying to get away, like, oh, we're going to prison forever. That
Yeah.
scares the death out of the average person, And I mean, you got to think about it. You can, when you see guys that go to the airport, in the news, you see guys go to the airport and get caught with guns all the time. And
Yeah.
you're like, man, that person's stupid. How could they be so dumb to take a gun to the
Bring a
airport?
gun with them, right?
Well, when you always carry a gun, like you carry a gun every
Like
day,
a
like you
watch
don't leave
or a
it.
necklace or
Yeah,
billfold. Yeah.
that's how. So,
Yeah.
you'd be surprised what you can get used to. Like when you sleep in a house with thousands of pounds, it don't bother you because you've been doing all this for so long, whatever. You'll jump in a car with 500 pounds like it ain't nothing, not a good idea. So you have to always check yourself like, hey, man, I got to slow down and,
Did you get into any crazy situations where you thought, man, tonight's the night I'm going to die?
yeah. I mean, people have tried to rob me, whenever you're messing with a lot of money. And so like when I was younger with the gang stuff, there was times when, I thought about hurting someone really bad. And I'm lucky that I had a good family and I was smart enough not to, I never wanted to kill anybody,
Yeah.
I wanted to hurt some people, but I never wanted, and I always thought like, what's going to happen? If I do this, what's going to happen and what's going to happen to my family? So I'm just glad I had enough. I never, I had to learn to control my but when I was young, I had a real anger problem, but I learned to control it. But if I do lose my temper, it never happens, but oh man, so it's like getting drunk, you know what I mean? So that's why, some people just can't control themselves. And yeah, but
Well,
I don't,
walk me through, Loso, when you're growing your business, um,
well,
and,
I'd say first of all, I went to prison. What really changed was
yeah,
things were taking off, whatever. And I was doing, I started, so I have a friend, I would say, and he went to Alaska to work on the fishing boats. He's an
okay,
older friend. We were doing stuff together. And then he kind of brought me in. He made a bunch of money and he started growing weed. And then we went up to Canada. I got kicked out of Canada in 2001. We started going up to Canada in like 99, 2000. I remember getting kicked out in 2001. So that's what at that time you could get the most up there. It was before California went real big with everything. So they always had stuff out there, but like large quantities. They were just going crazy back then in Canada. So
because that was in reading, that was your big connection, was California to Kansas.
yeah.
Um,
Well, so at the trial they had the Canadian flag, they had the
yeah,
Mexican flag, they had the California flag, the Colorado flag, and then they had the Kansas flag.
yeah,
Because actually in my indictment, my indictment alleges that there was weed brought from Canada, brought from Mexico, and if you do anything across international borders, it's an enhancement.
right.
So luckily, they didn't get me doing that. They got all these other knuckleheads doing it because these dudes all told on themselves,
Yeah.
So I didn't ever get up, but yeah, I don't know. It's a good, when you're a good person and you treat people good, I believe, like that's my thing. I had some bad situations or whatever, but like if you kill somebody, they're not going to pay your debt,
Yeah.
So I just wouldn't let guys get out there. And I learned a long time ago, don't mess with irresponsible people, and so,
Well, I mean, your organization, though, I mean, you had a lot of people, and I would think you'd have to have a lot of loyalty and trust in the fact that you had a lot of different moving parts
yeah.
in this organization. It was like a decent sized company.
Oh yeah.
Um, did you know at a certain point that something was coming down, or was it just an absolute shock that, all of a sudden this nightmare was on top of you?
So I knew they were trying to build a case against me in Kansas. Like I was at my house. I was at at this place I stayed when I stayed in Kansas for work. I always try to stay out of Kansas, really. So I didn't really do business in Kansas because that's the only place I ever been in trouble was in Lawrence
Did you have a
in
barbecue
Kansas.
restaurant?
Yeah, I owned a barbecue restaurant.
Okay. I was reading in the
Yeah.
stuff that was one of the places where there was a good amount of weed in the barbecue restaurant. Was that all true or not?
No, there was no weed at the barbecue restaurant. No, I wasn't. It was just barbecue at the barbecue. Yeah.
All
Only
right.
smoke was coming from the smoker. You know what I mean?
Got
Like,
it.
yeah.
Okay. All right.
So yeah, it's funny. No, I met a. One of the guys that wore a wire on me, a Joey. You know, they taped a wire to their dick or whatever because I patted him or whatever. But I sold him 4 pounds at my restaurant. That's what he wanted to meet. So that's the only thing that ever happened at the restaurant. So it wasn't. I actually lost money at the restaurant. I never made any money at that restaurant. That money, the restaurant thing was. I liked having and everything, but yeah, that was bad partners and restaurants are hard. So
Yeah. They're real
that's
hard.
it's not a yeah, it's like the hardest business to start and to keep going. So I'll never do a restaurant again. It was going good until I got locked up, of course, and then my partners just it was over with. So and that's what most of my businesses. I owned a surveillance company, did like home automation and security and
Well,
stuff, backed
that's
up
what I
like
was
all
going
the
to
stuff in
ask you,
Colorado.
Loso. I was going to ask you that. So when you got all these dollars coming in, you have to
Yeah,
reinvest.
that's the that's the biggest problem. The biggest problem I had was the money. You can't
Mhm.
take it to a bank. The biggest problem was what do you do with all this cash?
Yeah.
So I mean, like, yeah, invest in businesses, buy things, and then sell them and get a check. I bought my fire station. I lost that. I bought my truck, my bikes, and all that. But I mean, I think about all the time. I wish I'd have bought land. Like if I could tell somebody that's like myself, like, man, go to another country and buy a house, and then buy a place anywhere. Just go buy a big farm, buy 100 acres somewhere, right outside on the edge of town somewhere, and you ain't gonna lose. So
Yeah.
yeah, I wish I had done that. I bought
Me
that fire
too.
station.
I wish
I
I
was
would have
really
bought more property too. Yeah, absolutely.
yeah
Real estate's a great investment.
yeah, but I was just taking everything and getting more. I mean, so I had so many people that that had work. I had people working for me. I didn't have a lot of people working for me directly. I had a small core group, but things were always moving, and then I worked a regular full-time job.
Yeah.
I was a union pipe fitter. I didn't all, so my type of the lifestyle, I work a shutdown. So I'd work 7 days a week, 12 hours, 16 hours a day for like a month and a half. And then I'd be off until the next time a job like that came around. But, this, it was a lot sleeping on airplanes. 5 of the guys on my case were pilots too. So, I mean, we chartered planes and stuff. And that's not really it wasn't, sometimes it was cost effective, but it's better just to truck train or whatever.
So would you load the plane? Would that plane be loaded and then brought
Oh
back?
yeah. I'd
Yeah.
run across the airfield at night, throw the bags on there. And yeah, little airfields up in California. Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's, I mean, you see those guys get busted all the time, but usually for doing something dumb like flying into a no-fly zone or something because they got so high, they didn't know what they were doing, fell asleep. But yeah.
So when you had going back to you've grown this thing, you're in different businesses, you got yourself a day job where you're a pipe fitter, which is in a union.
Yeah. I mean, I
Uh,
mean, and that wasn't really a cover. That's what I was doing. I like to
yeah,
work with my hands, and I'm glad I
yeah,
did that because that's what I do now.
yeah,
But the one thing I'll say is about that is, that being a union pipe fitter teaches you how to handle things, how to think about things and go different directions and to double
yeah,
check your work and
yeah.
everything, to be thorough. So I
It
think
kind of played
that's,
into what you're doing.
yeah. And I travel for my job all across the country.
Yeah,
So I worked from the West Coast. I never really worked too much on the East Coast, but all South. So I met all types of people, and you be somewhere and all it takes is someone's smoking something. You're like, hey, yeah, why don't you try this? and then it's just, you just never know. Like when you're meeting someone, just like they do now, they call it networking. But back then I've been known about that, you know what I mean? Like this is just, shaking hands and kissing babies is what I call it. Shaking hands and kissing babies. Like it's out there being in the mix. And, because you just never know who that can help you in life or benefit, or who knows something. Hey, someone has the answer to one of your, like I tell people all the time, someone has the answer to a question.
Yeah.
Like if you can't figure something out, someone has the answer.
You have to ask for it.
Yeah.
So Loso, you get into basically doing all the things that you're doing. You've got your distribution going on with the marijuana. You've got pipefitter. You've got different things you've invested in. When did it start to heat up for you that something was going on?
I remember I was working at this powerhouse in Lawrence, Kansas, and somebody set off a firework, a big firework, boom, out in the street. And of course, what do you do when something like that happens? You go outside.
Sure.
And I realized, like, this is what you do to see who's in the house. So I thought about that. And I'd seen some people, I'd seen these vans, because it's the Lawrence, Kansas Police Department. We've got beef. It's personal. So like these dudes, they tip their hand, like they show their hand. So I'm seeing them. I'm not really there, and I don't really do business in Kansas or whatever, but I'm seeing certain stuff. And I see these guys at a KU basketball game, and I see them. I seen a guy at this club, and he's a cop. He's actually used to be a member of my gang, and I kicked him out. He's a cop in Garden, Kansas. His name's Anthony Garcia. He's a cop. I don't even know how you can be in a gang and then you become a cop. Be in a gang and then become a cop. But he's the head detective on my case. They're like buddies or whatever. He comes up to me in the club and is like all asking me questions. But he's dressed like a gang member from the 90s.
Okay.
And so I'm like, this is weird. Why is this dude dressed like, he's in the wrong decade?
How old are you at this time when this all happened?
I'm like, what am I? I'm like, this is at the end. I'm like 30, I think.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. 29 or 30. And I'm just like, man, this is weird. This guy's dressed like he's 17, like who does that? And I don't even recognize, because he's just a dark-skinned Mexican cat. So I'm thinking he's one of the homies just burnt out or something. But then I'm like, and it clicked in my mind, oh, this is that fool, like he's dressed like he's all choloed out. Like I'm just like, that don't even make no sense.
Yeah.
That, and then what else? Well, the guy that set me up, he calls me one day and he's like, hey, when you coming back from California? Well, I never tell anybody where I'm at. And if I'm out of town, I'm always saying I'm in Houston, I'm in Florida, or whatever. I never say where I'm at. I always point the finger in a different direction. I never, I never tell them. And I don't even tell people when I'm gone. I don't even I never said I was out of town, gone. And I never said where I was at. So when he told me that I was out of town and where I was at, I knew something. It was all bad.
Yeah.
So, but I thought it was a state case, because like I never got popped doing nothing. They never caught me with nothing. Even when I got arrested, they didn't get me with anything really, like not even 100 pounds. Like if you take everything and scrape it all together, and this is including my people, I don't think they could even I don't even know if they had over 100 pounds. I mean, maybe right around there. I think I had like 40 pounds at my fire station. Then my truck they popped outside of Omaha had like 50. And, that we were on like a little test run. So, yeah, I think that's.
So when this all started coming down, was it you wake up at 5 o'clock in the morning, they raid your house, or did you?
Oh man, yeah. Simultaneous raids in, I don't know, 9 different states, something like that, coordinated. They had the DEA.
They took everybody down all in the same day.
Yeah, same morning. Yeah. They shot my brother. They blocked him in traffic. Him and his secretary, they call her the secretary. They like to use term like stuff like, how they grab a hold of anything. Like they call my fire station the castle. Oh, the castle, like any type of like I'm like every king has a castle. You know what I mean? Like it's not like it's you take the term and make it derogatory, but it's like I bought a fire station. You know what I mean? Like here I am, 8,000 square foot
The fire station castle. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I'm just like, yeah. But yeah, it was everything. That morning, I was on my way to work and I got my welding hood in one hand, my lunchbox in the other. I was gonna get on my Harley. I had to change the tire on my Harley or whatever, and so I wasn't taking that. So I was riding with the guy that I was working with. I was at his house, and I see like these 15 cars, SUVs, trucks, and they're speeding down. They're all on the line. They're all dark. I'm like, damn, they're going to kick in. They're about to get somebody. Damn, they're deep as fuck. I wasn't even, the thought didn't even occur they were coming for me. I see them. I know what it is. It's a kick-in team, and I didn't think to run or nothing because I ain't do nothing. Like you got to kill somebody or something for them to come at you like that.
Yeah.
So I'm like, I ain't killed nobody. And then when these fools start screeching to a halt and everything, I'm like, like I'm looking around, like wonder where they're going, and then they start pointing guns at me, telling me to get on the ground. I'm like, the first thought that goes through my mind is, I wonder what one of my brothers or friends did that they're looking for them. They had to find me to find one of them. That's what I thought. Like they had to get me because I'm going to work. You know what I mean? Like I'm not hiding. So that's what I was thinking. I didn't learn about it
when you realized they were for you, Loso, what was going through your mind?
I was still, I still didn't find out till we got down to the courthouse what it was all about. I watched this DA agent get on my motorcycle, and that's probably like the sickest feeling I ever had. Like he gets on my bike, starts my bike up, and I'm just like, I would relate it to like catching your wife in bed with another man or something. I was just sick to my stomach. I was, get off of her. She doesn't like it like that. No, stop. You know what I mean? Don't touch her. Like I just was, I was like, oh, my baby. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He gets on, does a burnout, comes back, puts the TV out on the bike, puts my helmet on, does another burnout, takes off. Man, all these DA agents are like, man, that's a sweet bike, man. Oh man, where'd you get all that work done? You got that done in Cali? Like, oh, I'm just like, I'm sick. I'm like, hey, who was that guy? What was his name? It was, oh, him. Oh, we don't know who that is. You don't know who that is? That's what's his name, isn't it? Oh, no. He's not with us. He's he just does asset seizure stuff. We don't even know him. I'm like, yeah, doesn't he work in your office? Oh, no. Oh, okay. Yeah. So, yeah, get down to the courthouse.
So you get in there, Loso, and you're did they just take you in a room and say, hey, we've got this?
No,
and
they never said anything to me. No, they never said anything to me. They're during my trial, they've never tried to talk to me, not once.
So you never talked to them, really?
They never tried to talk to me. They never tried. They told the jury, him and his brother and their people, they're so loyal. We knew they would never cooperate. We had to get a wiretap because we knew we could never break them. They're so loyal. They're so tight, because originally it was going to be 5. So 5 of us went to trial. And then when we picked the jury, my homeboy Tiny, he pleads out. He was my business partner. He pleads out for misimprisonment of a felon. And I'm like, Tiny, you're white. You're not a criminal. We own a company. We own a business together. You smoke weed. That's all they got on you.
Yeah.
But I'm like, if you're scared and you want to, like you stood tall, if you want to take this plea, you have my permission. And that pisses them off because people are asking me for permission to take pleas.
Sure.
So you want to talk about the prosecutor getting mad? You got to this day to take this deal. We're not going to argue. We won't even give you this deal. Don't ask him. I'm giving you the deal. Don't be asking him anything. And they're like, hey, can I take this? Is it okay? And I'm like, yeah, it's okay, man. If you. So
yeah, when you know you're going to trial, so you also, I mean, you've got to get an attorney that wants to go to trial because they don't go to trial very often.
No. And most of them ain't trial attorneys. Like dudes will say they're trial attorneys, but most of these attorneys, even if they went to trial, they was just sitting there along for the ride.
Right.
Like my co-defense attorney, he just is along for the ride because I'm charged with the kingpin. So they're just basically my brother and my other co-defendant. They're just along for the ride. You know what I mean? Because everything they're slinging is at me.
Yeah.
Every
And
shot's at
everybody
me.
else gets scooped up in it, right?
Yeah, yeah, exactly. So yeah, but they never offered me a plea
Yeah.
until I was halfway through my trial, and they were worried about a mistrial.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they offered me 15, which I got 15. I ended up getting 15 in 9 months. So that was cool. You know what I mean? Like, so it wouldn't have been a better deal. And I ended up giving back 53 months.
Mm-hmm.
So, people are scared of trial. Like, to me, going to trial is like playing blackjack and you get the ace. You get two chances to break them.
Mm-hmm.
You get your trial, you get your appeal, you get your 2255.
Mm-hmm.
But you have to know, and I didn't know this during my trial. You have to do things. You have to have things on the record in order to appeal stuff. So if it's not on the record, if it's not brought up, you can't appeal it later. You can't bring it up later. So you got to bring up everything. And I learned this at trial, whatever. So I was like, I told my attorney, hey, don't just don't. I'm not going to win, but don't
Mm-hmm.
be up here arguing to win. Argue for my appeal.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? So we need to build the
Strategy.
foundation for my appeal, because these
How'd you
fools,
know that? How'd you know that?
just by reading, going to the law library and just reading and reading and reading, drinking coffee and
Uh,
being in the law library and not wanting to. Because they took everything. They took everything from it. Took all my money, seized all my bank accounts, took all my vehicles, everything I worked my whole life for. Took my fire station, and I
mm-hmm.
was working. So all this stuff isn't drug money,
Right. Right.
and being a drug
Right.
and that selling weed ain't easy. Being at
Yeah.
the top of your game, it's not easy.
It's not easy.
Yeah, because if it was easy, everybody could do it, but
Sure.
everybody can't do it because
Right.
obviously they don't. So
Right.
that's what I always get mad. People make it seem like, oh, you're a drug dealer, like you don't have to work hard. Man, nobody is successful at anything and makes a lot of money at anything unless they work hard and know
Yeah.
what they're
Unless they're
doing.
and are good at it
Yeah, you either have to have the knowledge and skills, or you know what I mean. Like, if
and
you're lazy and just
networking.
sit, yeah, you have to either have
An
the experience,
organization that has
knowledge, yeah,
distribution, has
yeah.
commissions, that has all the layout of incentives,
Yeah,
all the
but it's
things
still hard
that
work.
involve.
If you once you have a lot of money, it's easy to lose a lot of money. It's easy
Sure.
to start making mistakes, and what I mean, like, you can
Yeah.
lose everything.
Yeah.
So it's easy for once you get,
Well,
something can bring it down all the time. I tell people all the time, it's not the obvious stuff, it's the little things. Not mowing your grass, and then the
yeah.
city comes because your grass is a foot high,
Mm-hmm.
and they open the door and there's pizza boxes everywhere and game
Right.
controllers and stuff. I'm like, hey man, you know what I mean? Like, I tell my guys, like, clean this place up. Like,
Yeah.
you want this place to look like a nice,
Yeah.
middle class house. You don't want it to look like a weed house where there's a bunch of weed in it. You know what I mean? Like, no, keep everything cleaned up, nice furniture, everything nice,
Mm-hmm.
clean, and just be, and everybody, if they open the door, they think ain't nothing going on here.
Well, so what do you think when you go through this trial and everything's laid out and the jury comes back and they say guilty?
Well,
What's
so three of the people in the jury were crying.
okay?
So, I knew I was going to, they start reading, they start crying and stuff as they're reading the verdict, whatever. But on the first count, which was the big count, was the CCE, whatever, it was not guilty. So after that, I was like, I'm not getting life. Cool. And I already knew they messed up at trial. So, because we had a lien error. So I already knew that they might try to give me over 20, but it doesn't matter. It's getting overturned. So, like, I knew the most they could give me was 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
So I thought I was getting 20
Mm-hmm.
off the rip. I'm getting 20, you know what I mean? Or maybe 30. But if they give me over 20, I'm giving that back. And then we're just going to, knock it down from there.
Yep.
So I almost wish they would have gave me life, as weird as that sounds. But I was like, if they give me life for marijuana, I'll have rock stars and superstars coming out on my side, like
What
free
they give you
Los,
100? They give you 189 months,
189 months. Yeah.
which is always
Yep.
confusing when you get sentenced because you. I remember I got sentenced to 60 months. I think, well, that doesn't sound. Oh wait, no, that's 5 years.
Yeah.
They do
Yeah.
that in months, and you have to calculate that up in your head when you're working it through. Where did they send you?
So I went to Forest City first, I did most of my time there in Forest City, which is a sweet low. It's a great place. If you want to do time, you want to go there or Yazoo. Then from there, I went to Bastrop, Texas, and I came home. Yep. I hated Bastrop. That was it was a bad play. I had 3-man bunks, 3-man cells there. So I don't even know if any place in the BOP has 3-man cells anymore. But they do down there.
I'm not. I was at Leavenworth. I wasn't aware of a 3-man bunk.
Yeah, well, they're illegal.
That's unusual.
So, yeah.
We didn't have air conditioning, but that was a whole nother.
Oh yeah, he says it's the hot box. He says it's like living in an oven.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's.
So you go to work when you get in there. I mean, I'm thinking that part of your strategy was, well, so as you get in there and you went to work. I mean, you became a guy that started understanding, learning, and really getting into the thick of what you need to do with your case.
Yeah, like I thought my PSI, I objected to all that stuff, made a bunch of objections. I mean, so we did the appeal. They kicked my trial attorney off my case. They said he was deficient, so he couldn't be my appeal counsel.
Well, he did miss a lot of stuff from what I read.
Yeah, I mean, everybody makes mistakes or whatever, but he saved my life at the end of the day. So
yeah,
he beat
no life sentence, right?
Yeah, he beat 7 counts. So and he beat the biggest count,
right?
And I mean, he was crying at the end of the trial. He was crying. I'm rubbing his back like he's going to prison. You know what I mean? So I have nothing bad to say about Richard Johnson, my trial attorney from Kansas City, Missouri. If you get in trouble and you need someone to get you, he's definitely the guy you want to call and have.
And that's a good thing to know, Richard Johnson.
Yeah, he saved my life. If I was going to get somebody tatted on me, he'd be the guy. You know what I mean?
Richard Johnson.
Yeah, because I tell people get dumb tattoos. I'm like, man, I should get a tattoo of you.
I put Richard Johnson on there. He saved my life. No life in prison.
Oh man.
So while you're in prison, your brother. Let's see. I'm trying to think. Was he sentenced? He was sentenced with you, correct?
He was sentenced. I can't remember if he was sentenced before me or after me.
Okay.
So they gave 851 to him. I think he might have been the last person to get sentenced.
Okay.
Or either I was or he was. And if he was, it was because he was supposed to get sentenced before me, but then his lawyer, something came up or something. But yeah.
When did you start thinking when you were in prison in the law library, looking at all this stuff, that you might have a shot to file some of these motions and kick some of this stuff sideways?
So this is the thing, when you're in there, there's so much negativity around you. Nobody understands this stuff. Most guys in there, they're not fighting their case. They took a plea. So they're just like, lay down, do your time. Why you know what I mean? Like they either think you're telling or you
they gave away the right to appeal.
Yeah. Yeah. They put themselves in a box, and there's only 4 things you can do when you take a plea: prosecutor misconduct, breach of plea, some type of, some type of negligence, or your attorney.
Your attorney went crazy.
Yeah. So that's it. That's all you got. A constitutional error.
When you were doing your time, Loso, were you kind of on an island of your own with, because a lot of people do their time. They do their time.
Yeah.
And a lot of guys work out, a lot of guys read, a lot of guys do a lot of different things. They get a good prison job, they get them engrossed in that. But I'm thinking that what you got into was really all about how do I get back in court? How do I file these motions? Did you feel like you were on an island, being the only guy that was really focused on that? How were you doing your time in prison?
There were other guys in there that were, but so you got a lot of guys in there that are crazy. I mean, they're delusional. They're like, they misinterpret the law.
Yeah.
I think, and then you got these guys that just are paper gangsters. They just file frivolous claims just to bog the court down. They don't, they don't even care. They just start suing guards and stuff, filing lawsuits, whatever,
Yeah, just crazy stuff.
Yeah. But you got some guys in there that are, there's guys that help me along the way. And my brother, I'm communicating with my brother. So my brother really is the brains behind everything. He became a paralegal,
Mhm.
you know, so there was like 3 other groups of guys while we were in CCA that went to trial too, big cases. And so we all would be in the law
Just
library.
explain that for those listening in Costa Rica, CCA is not, it is a prison. It's a,
Yeah, it's a
yeah,
yeah, it's like a federal detention center. So it actually doesn't exist anymore in Leavenworth. They did away with it, and so now the the actual USP now is the detention center.
yeah.
But yeah, it's just like a private prison for
It's a
money.
private prison.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So and this one was so crazy they had to shut it down because it was rocking and rolling. But
yeah.
it actually got raided. So
It got
yeah,
raided
it got raided
at
by the
Leavenworth.
FBI. Yeah, the Leavenworth Detention Center got raided by the FBI and the DEA.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's funny because when I was there, there was a lady that she'd come down to the camp, and she would, you know, she was always just trying to cause trouble. You know, you can't sit there; you're out of bounds, and just stupid stuff. And and sometimes she was the visiting guard for, you know, the weekend, and she ended up getting hit up top because she was bringing in phones and other things, and the FBI tagged her. So there's been
Yeah.
some things that have happened at Leavenworth where, you know, some of these guards actually got hit and I can't imagine getting hit and going, you know, from their side of things, going to prison on the other side, but it
Yeah.
happens.
That,
It happens.
so that's one of the good things when you go to trial. Like, you know, the cops will read your stuff. They'll read your PSI, whatever. So like, if
Mhm.
they read my stuff, they would just be like, "Oh, you know, he's good." You know what I mean? Like, I,
Yeah.
I was in I was in Oklahoma City, and this guard was like, "Hey, man, you need a phone? You need weed? You need whatever? You know what I mean? Let me know." And I'm a
Mhm.
Sereno. I'm a Southsider, so you know. So I mean, I did my time. I did most of my. I stayed in the law library. I didn't
Mhm.
work a job. I never had a job the whole time I was in.
Yeah.
You know, they sent me down to the kitchen twice, and I told them, I'm just going to tell you this right now, Miss Miller, if you try to make me work down here, I'm gonna steal everything that ain't bolted down. You know, I said I'm fighting my case. I'm trying to go home. I ain't
Yeah.
got time for this. You know what I mean? I
Yeah.
don't care about none of this. I'm on appeal. You know, that's all I'm worried about.
Mhm.
So I'm not doing all this time. And you know, I mean, no one really believed me. My homies didn't believe me. You know, like my my fellow Southsiders, whatever, they're just like, you know, homie, you're crazy, you're tripping, you know, like, but
Yeah.
they probably thought something was up, you know, like when I went back on appeal, you know, because it's all on the computer and everything, you know, because back
No,
then
you
they
really
had the
beat some. You really filed some motions that were that went on appeal, and you won. The
yeah,
thing that I found fascinating is that I don't think I've ever had anybody on the show that went through all this and then were able. I mean, you were on, your case was on C-SPAN
oh
on
yeah,
the Supreme Court on
hmm
wiretapping, where it was
yeah,
out of the jurisdiction, and the justices actually listened to this.
yeah, and they said I was right, like my argument was right, but they're just like it didn't matter.
Yeah.
So I was like, I was right, but you don't got nothing coming. Like you're right, but you ain't got nothing coming for it
Yep.
because it didn't matter. I'm
It
like,
didn't matter.
well, it did matter because they listened to those phone calls and used that against me. They got that knowledge, but because that wasn't argued at trial, I couldn't argue that in the
Yeah.
Supreme Court. But
Because everything from
they let the
2015
government argue.
forward was, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but they let the government argue stuff that wasn't argued in trial. You know,
Sure.
but they wouldn't let us. So, but yeah, that's the way I did my time. I would get up, I would make a strong coffee, you know, make
That's
me
what I was
my
going
little
to ask you is how
Cadillac,
you did
whatever.
your time. Yeah.
Yeah, I made my little Cadillac, whatever, and that when they call that move to the law library, you
Okay.
know, then I come back and you know I might go work out or whatever, and then
Mm-hmm.
they're gonna have another move, and so I work out during the day, and then when the law library is open at night, I go to the law library twice a day, you know, if stuff was going on. Sometimes you know in between times I might only go once a day, but
Mm-hmm.
whenever the LexisNexis when they updated their cases, you know, I'm in there reading all the new case law, you know, seeing what's going on, and just the more you read, the more you understand, and you just you know
Well, and I thought you
find
said
stuff.
something, and it might have been before we got on the interview. It might have been before we were talking before the interview. Loso, you were talking about it doesn't matter what the attorney thinks about the law. It matters what the judge thinks about
Yeah,
what your
yeah, people,
argument is.
yeah, a lot
And
of
you kind of
guys.
learn that nuance
Yeah.
as you were doing what you were doing.
Yeah. I mean, I read a book by this Supreme Court judge, Alito, and it's how they interpret, how the judges interpret the law, whatever, how it all breaks down. And yeah, you got to read. I mean, when you're reading this case law, the judges will tell you basically what to do. We're denying you because of this, because you didn't argue this. Like they like
pathway.
Yep. Yeah, they show you like people coming forward, like, or when the new law comes out, they're just like, go this way, and this is so. But it's crazy because like my judge, she didn't get it. She didn't understand stuff. She was doing stuff like Aleen's. I mean, I could talk about the law all day, but because there's not that many like the people that I can talk to about it. Like when we get to talk about the law, man, we'll be gone.
Well, you went deep into it though.
Yeah.
So you went really deep.
Well,
a lot of people don't go deep into it.
Yeah, it's like I learned another language.
Mm-hmm. You went to law school and the law library.
Yeah. So, and it just, I had to. I was motivated and it worked, and I knew it was going to work. So like it's never giving up.
Never giving up. I want to know, when you started getting close to the door and you knew you were going to get out, because there were some times where you thought you were going to get out because of COVID and whatever, but when you finally got that thing, it's posted on the wall, Loso's going to go home this date, you don't believe it until it actually happens. But what were you thinking? All those, because at this course of time, you're at 7+ years. You've been locked up from 2012 to 21. Is that right?
Yeah. Well, when I got in the Supreme Court, I was thinking it's over with. I'm in the Supreme Court, mother. I'm telling the guards, I'm in the Supreme Court. I don't give a fuck what you say. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't, you know what I mean? I'll do the rest of the time in the shoe. Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's on the CLR. So like the guys that go to the law library with me, like, oh man, you want a CLR, dog? They took your case. People were like, they're jumping up and down in the kitchen, like, oh man, I seen you on CLR, dog. Because Los Dahda. So there's not. I mean, it's not a common name. So Los
Dahda
and my last name Dahda. So yeah. So they're just like, everybody's like, oh man, and So I thought I was getting. I mean, when I got to Supreme Court, I'm like, it's I think it's like 60% of people who make it to Supreme Court get their cases overturned or something like that. So I'm just like, you're more likely than not to prevail. So I'm like, and I'm like, man, all this crazy stuff they've done, I gotta go.
How long do you have after you went to the Supreme Court?
I had to wait a while. I think we waited all of 18 and 19. The decision came out, and then we didn't go back to get resentenced. I think we went back to get resentenced sometime in 19. And then I was back there when we were getting resentenced, they tried to give me an attorney. I fired him, was like, you're not selling me down the river. I'll get the best price for me. So, I don't know you. You don't have my best interest at heart. You're fired.
At this point, you've done a lot of research in the legal system, and probably a lot more than the person that they're going to lock you in with as an attorney, which at this point, keep going on your own.
Yeah. They made the guy standby counsel, and he'd pipe up and say something sometimes, whatever. And I remember having to check him in court, like, hey, you're standby counsel, stand by. You know what I mean? Like, I'll tap you if I need your assistance, but you don't have my permission to be doing none of that.
It hadn't been that long since you've been out. So you finally get the day where you get out. What happens?
I mean, I'm coming home. Like, it's just, I mean, like I said, oh yeah, I got support. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, all my people, like, that's the thing. Like, all these guys I came up with, and all the people that was my team. Like, no one close to me testified against me. No one close to me told on me. So like, everybody's waiting. We're still tight. Like, all these people I rock with, like, and not everybody went to prison. Not everybody got caught. So, there's guys that are like, man, the only reason I'm out here is because of you, So like, my people looked out, came home. I went to Portland. I went to the halfway house in Portland, Oregon, and I was out there for like 16 months. And yeah, I just did the halfway house out there. Went to work as a union pipe fitter. I tell the dudes in the halfway house, man, I make more than you. I make 3 times as much money as you do. You know what I mean? Because I'm a union pipe fitter, and they're just so I mean, I was fortunate to have a skill and a trade to come home
to be able to
to,
go back to. Exactly.
Yeah, to go back to. So, and it's just, that's why I tell guys, like, really, if you get in the union, if you don't have a skill or a trade, if you don't know anything, man, get in the union, learn how to do something, learn how to weld, become an electrician, teach yourself something that nobody can take from you. They can't take an education from you. So, but my brother's actually,
they can't take away your brain. Well,
no,
so they can't take away your brain. And so where are you at now? What's going on with you now?
I'm working, I'm saving my money. I'm going to try to start some type of business, but things have changed a lot. It's been an adjustment. Everything's on the internet now. Like before, I feel like I could hustle. Like there's always something I could do. But now, like, it's like everything's on the internet. So like, it's like they took the hustle out of hustle. Like, I mean, it's not like
on the internet.
Yeah, like it's all scams and stuff, So it's like, it's not really like who like you can find anything on the internet, so you don't need to know that guy or know somebody.
So
you
true.
can find there's everything's on the internet, so it's like I know I'm going to see something, I'm going to recognize something, and then I'll exploit that, whatever. But I'm just saving my money and waiting for that, and then until then, hard work pays out.
I love your story on how you were doing all that stuff, but you were still a pipe fitter, traveling, doing, and now you were able to come back to it. You're a union guy, you're a smart guy, and I love your story also because you just you never gave up. You kept working the system that you were given and worked within it and got pieces of it back. Now you did your time, and you've got a lot of support. And I see nothing but good things for you because you do have your brain. You're a smart guy. You know what you're doing, and a guy that can run a big organization can always run a big organization. Just the way it is.
Yeah,
can't get it out of your DNA. Can't get it out of your DNA.
No.
I got to ask you.
I want to write a.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Well, my plan is that the biggest thing I'm working on right now is when my brother gets out, we're going to write a book about going to trial, going to Supreme Court, representing yourself. Because I don't feel like there's really too many books about guys who have fought the feds for real.
No, I think
they got the book. Yeah. But there's that book, Busted by the Feds or whatever, but it doesn't really tell you what's in store. So I want to write a book and tell people, like, this is what's going to happen. Like, this is really what you got coming when they're offering pleas, and if you're going to go to trial.
And
does your lawyer?
Also, you should so do that because there's so many guys that need that to understand that all the work that you put in and the knowledge that you have to feed that back and help people. It'd be fantastic. You should do it.
Yeah. Oh, we're doing it. It's happening. I'll send you a copy. Yeah.
And your brother gets out in September?
We're hoping at the end of September, no later than November. So they just put him in for another 60 days. So he's the last of the Mohicans.
Yeah, he's on the fast run out.
Yeah.
I always ask people, Loso, you have lived a life where you can write a book. What do you think is your greatest takeaway through everything you've been through is living this life you've lived?
Man, I would say for real, like at the end, like I made millions of dollars. I made more money than most drug dealers who sold cocaine and heroin. And I would say, really your family and your friends, like, because of the type of guy I am still, like I didn't change. Prison didn't change me. I didn't go in there. I didn't find
lose
God
yourself.
or anything. Yeah, like I'm still the same person. I didn't switch up. And I came home, my people, I'm still the same way. Like, what you're going to get with me. Like I tell guys that work for me, let me ask you a question. If you get one phone call, who are you going to call? They say, well, can I call you? Well, you can call anybody you want to. I'm calling you. I tell them, okay, now let me ask you this. if I get one phone call, who do you think I'm calling? Do you think it's you? Now, is that fair?
Mm-hmm.
So, like I'm that person though for a lot of people. They know, that you can depend on me. If you need a
Yeah,
ride to the airport.
And I got to tell you, Loso, you were a leader, and you're classified as a leader, as a kingpin, as a guy that was the guy that was making it happen. And I admire that. You are in any industry, when you're a leader, you're a leader of men and women that believe in you, that believe that you can take them to certain places. And I hope you use that, however you use it, because that's in your DNA. And I think however you use that going forward will be helpful to other people, because whatever that is, that vibe, that intangible thing that you have, will continue to make a difference, and you will make a difference because you have that in you. It's good stuff, man.
I appreciate that. Yeah, that's the plan.
If people ever want to get a hold of you on your Instagram, on anything, where do they go?
My Facebook is Loso, El Grandioso. It's in Spanish. Same thing for Instagram. That's pretty much it. All of them on. But or you could just type in my name, search my name, Los, Los Dahda, Dahda, and it should come up on Facebook. Days. Well, you can read for days. Yeah, that's true. A lot of it's not untrue, but I mean, some of it's true, I guess.
Yeah, none of us really like Google when we've gone through it, but you've got some impressive things on there that you did that you can read on of things that you filed and things that are actually on the internet that people can read. For those who want to read some more, I've got a book out there, Nightmare Success, Loyalty, Betrayal, Life Behind Bars, Adapting, and Finally Breaking Free, a memoir. You can get it on Amazon. You can get it on Barnes & Noble. Love you guys following the show, leaving your likes and comments. If you want to get a hold of me, it's BrentCassidy.com. On my website, it's TY, not DY, like Sean and David. And man, guys, leave a review on Spotify or Apple. It puts the show on steroids. I don't know what that algorithm is, but whenever you guys do that, it just continues to bump up the show. As I used to say when I was writing my emails back and forth at Leavenworth, stay strong. I'll do the same. Loso, man, I appreciate you taking the time out today. It's a great story. I know you're going to go on and do some incredible things because you got it in you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Nightmare Success, in and out.